Okay, so today what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about meditation, how I got into it, and what I've learned over the past 8 odd years of meditating. So, back in 2012, I used to do the drug and alcohol rehab job here in Leicester as a junior doctor. And it was an inpatient unit where patients would come in for an assisted detox off alcohol or heroin. And it was an interesting job. You had a lot of very eclectic mix of patients. Some people coming in for repeated detoxes, other people coming in for the first detox, strange cases like people getting addicted to Listerine. Once a patient came in with for alcohol detox, and we actually found a crack pipe on him, so we had to let him go. But it was a very mixed job, and one of the things that I learned, particularly about addiction, is the complex nature by which people actually get into it, and the actual addiction is just a coping mechanism. But deep down, there are definitely significant life events, situations that have just not been addressed or worked upon, or people just lack a kind of structure and a social structure around them to kind of lift themselves out of the kind of rut that they're currently in. But whilst I was doing that job and I was just writing in a patient's notes, there's a piece of paper at the back, and it basically said a kind of relaxation meditation program that you could follow, and it went along the lines of, find a quiet place, lie down, start focusing on your breath and just breathe in and out in a nice relaxed fashion, and then slowly just focus on your legs and your ankles and relax them, and then work your way up to your upper legs, your upper body, through your chest, down to your arms, your fingers, and then slowly you work your way up into your head, and you relax your neck muscles, and you relax your brain. And I gave it a go, and yeah, it was pretty good. It was nice. It was definitely a good way to wind down when you wanted to kind of just clear out your thoughts and just relax a bit. And after that, I kind of just started reading a bit more into meditation, and kind of what meditation actually means in the Latin term is to heal. And that's exactly what it is. It's an internal process that you spend just by yourself, going within and seeking and searching and understanding what's making your brain tick and what's making you feel the way you do. So what I kind of found more and more is, and more that I read was, what meditation is now is completely different to what it was 50, 100, 200 years ago, because we live in a very fast-paced world now. There's constant distraction. We've got this whole thing of digital distraction where, we've almost become slaves to technology, and we're constantly allowed to be interrupted by a barrage of notifications, emails, kind of like exploding WhatsApp conversations, all sorts of things kind of can just come in the way, and that can really make it difficult to tune down the brain. And as I kind of like began to meditate more, I actually began to understand that I need to start distancing myself more from technology, even just to allow my brain to get into a better state to meditate. So a lot of the things that I do now involve switching on do not disturb on my phone. It helps me a lot, especially when I want to focus on work. I quickly get a nice sense of achievement. But also in the evenings when, I'm not in the mood to speak to anybody, I don't necessarily want to speak to someone, or I want to read a book, or whatever it is. I think tactically using do not disturb on your mobile phone is definitely a way to help you tune down the brain a little bit, so then you can enjoy your meditative activities a bit more, whether that's walking the dog, going for a run, doing a bit of gardening, cleaning the house, whatever it is, it's just nice to switch that off in this day and age. So as I kind of began to meditate more, initially it was all about following guided meditations on YouTube. They used to help me to wind down, to go to sleep. I started using a couple of apps, and they were quite good. You learn something from everything that you do. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to meditate. There are so many different ways to do it. And that can include anything from your kind of daily activities to just fully focusing and winding down. But what I began to realize after kind of doing more meditation, which was revolved around focusing on the breath and kind of clearing the mind by focusing on the breath, which is extremely, extremely difficult because, you know, even this morning is a classic example. Last night, for some reason, my phone didn't charge. I've turned up here, I've tried to set up the stand. I thought, I don't want to start the video and then my phone battery die. So I tried to plug in the charger. There's not enough space between the bottom of the phone and the book and the stand. So that wasn't working. I started to get a little bit annoyed because I like to kind of do these videos with a fresh head. So, you know, I've literally just meditated for about 10-15 minutes to buy some time for the phone to charge, but also just to relax a bit because I was just getting a little bit annoyed with just the way the morning was going. So it's quite a good tool to use here and there. And what I was finding was, especially with the way that I think, I'm quite a deep thinker. My brain doesn't really react that well to not distractions, but just shifts in thought. You know, if I'm doing something, let's say I'm just editing photos, you know, I just want to do that for 2 hours. And then if something turns up, like someone driving a forklift truck into the shutter, or a parcel going missing, or, you know, having to chase payment or something like that, you know, these kind of things just cause my brain to get quite fudged. And then what quickly happens is I descend into this pattern where I feel like I'm not achieving anything anymore in the day. And also I don't even know what to do next because I've just been distracted and pulled left, right and center. So when I would meditate after that, and especially at the beginning, it always kind of ended in like a little power nap, you know, but I'd get that kind of 1 second of sleep, which was incredibly restorative. And immediately after coming out of that state, it was amazing how I was just on autopilot, and I'd literally get up, probably make a cup of tea, and then sit at my desk, and it was like, this is what I need to do, bang, 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 and it was all just getting done. And I've quickly found that this short burst of meditating would just help me a lot during the day. Now, sometimes I meditate 2-3 times a day, sometimes once, sometimes I just don't meditate for weeks, sometimes just because I feel like I don't need to and things are in control. So meditation, I find, is something that you completely control. It's not like going to the gym and seeking massive results in a short period of time. It really does take a long time because it's incredibly hard to tune down the brain. I mean, even now when I was lying down, all I could think of is, oh, there's that scratch on my dad's car that I need to get repaired. I owe someone 10 quid. So there's so much going on in the brain that it's quite nice just to accept that you're not going to be a good meditator, and actually just to allow your brain to just sink down, close yourself off from all external stimuli, to then reorganize the brain is a massive tool that I think everybody can access quite easily. And even if it's for a minute or 2 minutes, that is a very good start. So that led me more into reading about meditation, which was more about observing. So you can focus on the breath and you can kind of try and silence the brain. But then there's also this other way of doing it where you're just watching your thoughts fleet by, and you try not to follow that thought deep into a hole, but you just observe it. And if you do find yourself going into a hole, you quickly bring yourself back to the breath, and you start again, because pretty much within a couple of seconds, another thought's coming. And what starts to happen is you meditate because of something going on in your day, or you meditate as a regular activity at a certain point in time. But as you keep seeing these thoughts appearing, you start to recognize some incredible patterns emerging, and you start to see why things are occurring on regular intervals, and you start to really get to understand yourself and what is causing you to have certain types of relationships with certain types of people, what's causing you to get annoyed at certain situations. And what I found slowly is I was becoming very aware of my own mood and the impact it was having on everyone around me. And through that, I started then really tuning into other people's moods as well. Now, this is kind of coming back to the point of like happiness. And I think in this day and age, a lot of people are focused on chasing happiness. Now, happiness is this peak state of life, and you can't be happy all the time. It's kind of like being the first person who's drunk at a party. You might be having a great time, but everybody else probably isn't, and it's just not sustainable. So I quickly began to understand that, you know, everybody's moods are going to be fluctuating up and down, and I've just got to be able to react and circumnavigate those situations in order for me not to get upset either. And that was one of the key things that I've kind of like learned over the time is, you know, it's really like you begin to understand where you're bringing the problems in your life, and then quickly and quite fast you actually start to find the solutions. The other thing that's quite interesting about meditating is you quickly realize when your brain is going down a negative, vicious circle. It's really easy in this day and age to latch onto something that's happened and allow that to become the focus of the next half an hour or the hour. But before you know it, you know, if you're thinking about the past, you're moving towards a more, you know, depressive state. And if you're thinking about the future, you're going to become more anxious. So the whole notion of being present and mindful and living for the day and doing the best you can today really becomes apparent to you, because you start seeing that actually I'm starting to walk down that path, but I'm just going to bring it back because I know where that path is going because I've been there before. And through the meditation, I'm starting to understand why that is, and you begin to make peace with it. So again, you can focus on today, achieve what you want to achieve, and then by the end of the day, you're feeling much better because you got those little micro kind of steps done, rather than dwelling on the future or the past, which really isn't going to improve the here and now. And, you know, there's plenty of different ways you can actually meditate as well. And it's a huge world. I mean, I've not even really explored chanting, but I believe like singing is really good. Just going out by yourself, a bit of a walk, noticing the changes in nature. So even if you kind of like go outside and look at the tree today and then notice how the tree looks different a week later, or you kind of go on the same walks and you start appreciating everything around you, you kind of like tune down a lot more, and you start to become more in sync with nature. So yeah, there's lots of different ways to meditate. I think everybody should give it a shot, and yeah, read around on it, go on YouTube, try some guided meditations, download a few apps, maybe buy a couple of books, and just work it out for yourself. But I think it's a great tool, and it definitely can help you improve your life. So thanks for listening.